Very good morning. I'm Dr. Janak Patel. Today I'm going to talk on chronic kidney disease, or we call CKD. Previously it was called as chronic renal failure. Now that terminology is replaced by CKD, that is chronic kidney disease. So there were a lot of names: CRF, CKD, CKI, CRI, end stage renal disease, chronic renal insufficiency, etc. All these are being replaced by chronic kidney disease. Renal insufficiency word is also outdated. Pre-uremia word is also outdated. Renal dysfunction is also outdated. Chronic renal failure is also not utilized nowadays. And there is another word called as a chronic renal insufficiency that is also not utilized. Pre-dialysis renal failure is also not a common terminology. We'll be discussing under definition, etiology, pathophysiology, clinical features, investigation, differential diagnosis, management, and complications. What is CKD? CKD means chronic kidney disease. This is defined on the base of presence of either kidney damage or decreased kidney function for 3 or more months, irrespective of the cause. Maybe any etiology. But what should be the criteria? 1. Duration should be more than 3 months. Based on documentation or inference like GFR, we call as a eGFR or glomerular filtration rate, which has to be less than 60 milliliter plus per minute per 1.73 square meter. Or you have to demonstrate that there is a kidney damage defined by a structural abnormality or a functional abnormality other than decreased GFR, which can be done by albuminuria. So this is a standard definition. So persistence of a damage or a decreased function for at least 3 months or more, and it is necessary to distinguish CKD from an acute kidney disease. The damage is pathological abnormality which is diagnosed by either renal biopsy or by image study or by a marker, and marker are two: one, urinary sediments abnormality or increased rates of urine albumin excretion. This is by using a pathological abnormalities. So albuminuria is divided into 3 groups: normal, micro, and macro, or we call overt albuminuria, which can be identified by 24-hour excretion or a time urine specimen or a spot urine albumin by dipstick or spot urine albumin creatinine ratio or by spot urine albumin creatinine ratio by other technology. These are the different methods by which you try to identify albuminuria, and you classify them into normal, micro, and macro, or we call overt. By and large, the standard method is 24 hours excretion. If it is less than 30 milligram per day, it is called normal. If it is between 30 to 300 per day, it is micro. More than 300 is called macro, or we call overt. If it is more than 3.5 gram, then it is called as a nephrotic variety. GFR is calculated by Crockford formula, that is for a male 140 minus age multiplied by body weight in kilogram divided by 72 multiply serum creatinine, and in case of female this formula is multiplied by 0.85. This is usually the most common formula which is being utilized, but there are advantages and disadvantages. You have to consider all those. There is a second formula we called as MDRD formula, where GFR is calculated by 141 multiplied by minimum serum creatinine multiplied by maximum serum creatinine multiplied by 0.993 H multiply by 1.018 in female, etc. So this becomes a little difficult formula, so it is simplified. 186.3 multiplied by serum creatinine multiplied by age multiplied by 1.212 in an African American, or multiplied by 0.742 in a female. These are the two standard formulas, out of which the Cockcroft formula is the simple most, and apps are available on different mobiles. Other way to calculate is by creatinine clearance, which is the most accurate, but you have to do it in a proper standard laboratories. CKD, there will be slowly evaluation of GFR, and there is a gradually the methods are changing. Previously blood urea and serum creatinine was utilized, then later on 24 hours creatinine clearance was utilized, then Cockcroft formula came, and last MDRD formula came. Ideally that is the best choice at present. Now you can see in this chart, it shows you that if a person at the age of 25, if he loses more than 1 ml of GFR per minute per year, then his lifespan remains nearly same. But say if he starts losing that at the age of 45, then his lifespan will not be much affected. But as gradually the GFR goes on losing every year, the lifespan becomes less and less. At the age of 45, if he loses 5 ml per minute per ml per minute year, his lifespan will be reduced. Now this is a chart which shows you the standard classification of CKD, which is classified into stage 0, 1, 2, 3. 3 is divided into A and B, 4 and 5. According to this stage, stage 0 is where there is no kidney damage and GFR is maintained more than 100. While in stage 1, there is a kidney damage, but GFR is still normal, more than 90 or equal to 90, where person might have mild elevation of blood pressure, or blood pressure may be absolutely normal. This is called stage 1. Stage 2 is kidney damage with mild decrease in the GFR, and GFR is between 60 to 89. Blood pressure is elevated, and there is always some micro abnormalities like proteinuria, hematuria, etc. Stage 3 is divided into 3A and 3B. 3A means if GFR is between 45 to 59, and 3B means between 30 to 44, in which the blood pressure is always elevated, there is always laboratory abnormalities, and person is symptomatic. While stage 4 is there is severe fall in GFR, less than 30, more than 15, so it is 15 to 29. Blood pressure is elevated, blood pressure is always abnormal. There is a gross laboratory abnormalities and symptoms are always present. It is symptomatic. Well, stage 5 we call as an end stage renal failure, where GFR is less than 15 and he needs dialysis, or we call RRT, for life support, and the symptoms becomes more prominent, laboratory abnormality persists, and person is hypertensive. Now this classification we call as CGA classification, or cause, GFR and albuminuria. That is, we call C for cause, G for GFR, and A for albuminuria. When all these are combined together, this is a chart which is showing you high risk, medium risk and low risk. That is, GFR is classified into G1, G2, G3A, 3B, 4 and 5. G1 is more than 90, G2 is 60 to 89, G3A is 45 to 59, G3B is 30 to 44, G4 is 15 to 29, and G5 is less than 50. And as far as albuminuria is concerned, A1 is normal, A2 is microalbuminuria, and A3 is macro or overt albuminuria. And if you see in these red lights, 4 is very high risk, 3 is less than high, 2 is medium, 1 is moderate risk, and 1 what is if CKD, then this is called almost we call as a near normal or minimum risk. These are the way you can do by a CGA classification. Another way to classify according to etiology, classical diabetic kidney we call as a diabetic CKD. Depending upon the hypertensive etiology, we call hypertensive kidney disease. So these are the two main causes of CKD. So we call diabetic induced CKD, hypertensive induced CKD. And if there is no hypertension and no diabetes in that person, we call as a non-hypertensive, non-diabetic kidney disease. Like glomerular disease, vascular disease, tubulointerstitial disease, cystic disease, following transplants, etc. These are some of the conditions. And this becomes the etiology. So if we go through the etiology, the topmost on the list is hypertension. Second common is diabetic. If you see that these two conditions almost accounts for nearly 55 to 60% of the cases. Then comes vascular disease like renal artery stenosis, vasculitis, atherosclerosis, renal vein thrombosis. Glomerular disease, which will be accounting for another big group, which can be primary or secondary, which is almost 21%. Cystic disease only 4%, which comes in a congenital disease, which can be adult polycystic kidney disorders, Alport syndromes, etc. UTI accounts for another big group, we call as almost to 23%, urinary tract obstructions, recurrent stone formations, and unrecovered acute kidney injury. These are the conditions. So if we go through the small groups, that is hypertension, diabetic becomes a big group. Another group is glomerular, that is glomerulonephritis, either nephritic variety or nephrotic variety, tubulointerstitial disease, vascular disease, genetic disorders like polycystic kidney, after transplant, vesicoureteral reflux, pelvic ureteral reflux. There are odd conditions like pulmonary renal syndrome, cardiorenal syndrome, hepatorenal syndrome, systemic infection, repeated urinary tract infection, urinary tract obstruction, autoimmune disease, and person recovers from ARF but may have a partial recovery and goes into the stage of a CKD, kidney stones, drug toxicity, neoplasm, etc. If we again go back to the previous slide, you can see that the diabetic kidney, hypertension, glomerular disease, and urinary tract obstruction almost accounts for 95% of the cases. So if you go through this particular slide, you can see that the major causes are diabetic. Then another group of disease is hypertension. So these two will be accounting for nearly 70%. Then glomerulonephritis is accounting for another big bunch, and comes obstructive groups, which will be accounting total to 95% of the groups. These are some of the risk factors, that is hypertension, diabetes, autoimmune disease, older age, African ancestors, strong family history of renal disease, prior episodes of AKI, and person has got persistent proteinuria, urinary sediments, structural abnormality like polycystic kidney, etc. If we go through the pathophysiology, you know that the renal functions are excretion of waste products, electrolyte balance, acid-base balance, water balance, blood pressure maintenance, renal clearance, erythropoietin production, which has got effect on a production of a RBC, WBC, and platelet, vitamin D activation, prostaglandins production, gluconeogenesis, etc. All these functions will be affected if there is a damage to kidney in CKD. So in CKD, water balance is imbalance. You will have acid base imbalance, you will have a sodium and potassium imbalance, protein imbalance, person will usually develop an hypoproteinemia, fat metabolism will be affected, there will be decrease in the fat content in the body, carbohydrate metabolism will be also affected, calcium and phosphorus metabolism is affected because the person loses calcium and person will have a hyperphosphatemia, secondary hyperparathyroidism and tertiary hyperparathyroidism, or we call autonomous hyperparathyroidism. And there is another terminology which is being utilized is mineral bone disease. Vitamin D metabolism is also affected, which will also have an effect on a mineral bone disease. Blood urea creatinine is gradually getting elevated and you will have a symptom signs of uremia in an end state disease. Erythropoietin secretion is affected, so you will have a pancytopenia. So anemia, leukopenia and thrombocytopenia, which will have effect on all these three cells. All this imbalance, water imbalance, acid base imbalance, electrolytes, etc. will have an effect on cardiovascular, respiratory, alimentary as well as CNS. Even skin and bones are affected. Muscles are affected. Now, this is a small slide which is showing you in general some of the effects. Like because of sodium and water imbalance, sodium is retained, water is retained, which will increase your blood volume, so you will have edema. Because of sodium retention and increase in the blood volume, person will have invariably hypertension, because also there is an increased renin level in blood, which will have increased production of aldosterone and angiotensin 2, which will help in elevating of blood pressure. Because of increased blood volume and hypertension, person will have a high chance of development of the heart failure, particularly left ventricular failure. Potassium will be always retained, so person will have a high chance of development of hyperkalemia, which will have effect on the cardiovascular muscles, producing cardiac arrhythmias. And there is a tall T wave. Slowly the PR interval will get prolonged, P wave will be absent, and there will be final sine wave formation, and person will have a high mortality. Hyperkalemia will also have an effect on a skeletal muscle, producing muscle weakness, and in later stages person can have a hyperkalemic paralysis or muscular weakness we call. Because of lack of urea excretion, urea is accumulated in blood, which will have effect on a coagulative factors well, and it will produce bleeding tendency, as well as urea will be deposited on the pericardium, producing pericarditis and sometimes even pericardial effusion, which can compromise the cardiac functions. Urea will also have an effect on the immune system, and which will have very high chance of development of the infections like lung infection, repeated urinary tract infections. Urea will be deposited in skin, producing skin itching, severe pruritus, and even change in the color of the skin. We call it ash color skin. On a GI tract, decreases the GI motility, increases the acid production. So there is increased ulceration, decreased appetite, decreased intake of food. So person will have a high chance of getting malnutrition, nutritional disorders, and person will have a nausea, vomiting, and this will also irritate diaphragm, producing hiccups. On CNS, brain, person will start developing little drowsiness, uremic flaps, person will slowly become more drowsy, semi-comatose, and even can develop convulsions. Uremia will also have an effect on sexual functions. Erythropoietin production, I have already mentioned that erythropoietin production is reduced, that will produce anemia, which will have weakness, fatigue, leg cramps, and this will usually produce chronic anemia, which will not respond to your nutritional supplements. You will require to give EPO from outside, erythropoietin production from outside. WBC production will be decreased, leukopenia will have an increased chance of infections, decreased platelet count will have an increased chance of bleeding tendencies. Acid base imbalance will produce acidosis because of retention of H ions, and there will be associated increase in potassium, which will produce hyperkalemia. And acidosis will have an effect on respiratory system by acting at the level of the respiratory center, producing tachypnea. Also, it will have an effect on the brain. It will have also effect on other structures like GI tract, where it will increase the production of acid. Skeletal buffering system will be also affected, and it will have production of osteodystrophies. Activation of a vitamin D is reduced, and because of reduction in vitamin D, there is decreased absorption of calcium from GI tract. There is decreased deposition of calcium into bones, which will have osteodystrophy, and it will also have a decreased effect on bone deposition of calcium, and this will lead to hypocalcemia. This hypocalcemia will produce stimulation of parathyroid, and that will start having increased production of a parathormone we call as a hyperparathyroidism. And this parathyroidism will go on increasing, but calcium level does not come up because calcium is thrown out in urine and there is a retention of phosphates. This will results into primary hyperparathyroidism, secondary hyperparathyroidism, and later on autonomous hyperparathyroidism, or sometimes it is also called as a tertiary. This is a diagram which is showing you because of the renal damage effect on the heart. This is a little complicated diagram. I am not going into much detail, but just I am summarizing that CKD can have a lot of effects on heart. It can increase atherosclerosis. It can have effect on pericardium, producing pericarditis, pericardial effusion, as well as because of RAS system activation, sympathetic nervous system activation, endothelial dysfunction, inflammation, and anemia. It will have decreased cardiac output, increased wall stress, increased central venous pressure, myocardial injury, myocardial fibrosis, which will reduce ejection fraction, and decreased renal function. There's a decreased GFR, decreased renal flow, tubulointerstitial damage, albuminuria, renal fibrosis, renal congestion, and that will produce RAS system activation, and that will produce sodium and water retention. All these are interrelated, and slowly the person will develop dilated cardiomyopathy, and ejection fraction will go on reducing. And during that stage, GFR is reduced, albuminuria increases, renal markers are elevated, BNP is elevated, and troponin is also sometimes elevated once the person reaches that particular stage. As it advances further, there is marked decrease in GFR, increased albumin, tubular markers are also elevated, BNP is also elevated, and troponin is also elevated, and person rates hospitalization. And in a late stage, the person will go into severe albuminuria, tubular markers are markedly increased, and troponin is also markedly increased. And here, the person requires what we call as a chronic heart failure management, like left ventricular assisted device, heart transplantation, and palliative care. This will be the way the person will require. This is a diagram which is showing you how exactly there is an effect on heart by kidney and other structures which will also have an effect on the heart, like parathyroid, aldosterone secretions, atherosclerosis, electrolyte imbalance like hypokalemia, hypocalcemia, zinc and selenium, etc. And there is a formation of a dilated cardiomyopathy. This is a small diagram showing you that particular thing. Now, as far as we go in a clinical features, person right from CKD, stage 1, how he progresses from stage 1 to stage 2, 3, 4 and 5 stages, and that is how he progresses. As the GFR goes on reducing, patient will progress from stage 1 to stage 5. Usually stage you can divide other way round. With a normal GFR, you will need a screening for risk factor estimation. There will be further increase in the risk factors and there will be increased risk. Then there will be diagnosis. You will have a damage stage. When GFR is markedly diminished, you will have a stage of complications and person will go into a stage we call as a kidney failure and later on into end stage renal disease and death. Stage 1 and 2, you will be able to demonstrate very clearly a renal damage by means of a microalbuminuria, presence of diabetes for 5 to 10 years, or diabetic retinopathy, hypertension, etc. While if the person does not have any evidence of renal damage, he will have if he has got a history of diabetes, hypertension and strong family history, we call that the person is at an increased risk. In stage 3 and 4, hypertension, retinopathy, cardiovascular disease and diabetic complications are present. While in stage 5, you will have retinopathy, cerebrovascular disease and diabetic complication with uremia. These are the things what you will be able to grossly. And this diagram I have already explained you before. This is a similar showing you some of the findings that because of a sodium and water imbalance, the person will have a hypertension, heart failure, edema. Symptom signs because of potassium imbalance, uremia, because of erythropoietin, because of acid base imbalance, vitamin D and phosphates. And this is the diagram which shows you the effect of uremic syndromes on different systems. In CNS, fatigue, sleep disturbances, headache, muscular irritability, lethargy, seizures, coma, uremic flaps. As far as psychological function is concerned, depression, anxiety, psychosis. In eye, bad eye syndromes, band keratopathy, hypertensive retinopathy, cardiovascular system, hypertension, CHF, asymptomatic heart disease, then pericarditis, myocardiopathy, usually dilated cardiomyopathy, uremic lung, GI tract, anorexia, nausea, vomiting, uremic smell, gastroenteritis, GI bleeding, peptic ulcer. In hematology, pancytopenia, that is anemia, thrombocytopenia, and leukopenia. Peripheral neuropathy, restless leg, paresthesia, motor weakness, paralysis. Endocrine, hypothyroidism, thyroid abnormality, particularly hypothyroidism, hyperparathyroidism, hypothyroidism, amenorrhea, infertility, and sexual dysfunction. Metabolic disorder, carbohydrate intolerance because no longer kidney can regenerate or can give rise to gluconeogenesis. Hyperlipidemia, nutritional disorders because there is a decreased appetite, decreased intake, and there is an elevation in the uric acid level which can give rise to gout. Inner skin, pallor, pigmentation, severe pruritus, S-color skin, ecchymosis, excoriation, sometimes calcium deposits, uremic frost. These are the different signs. Roughly, you can see in this diagram in a short, GFR starts reducing, blood pressure is elevated, 24 hours urine creatinine clearance is reduced, kidney damage is with normal or increased GFR in the early stages. There is decreased urinary concentration, so nocturia. So you will require a primary treatment of a comorbid condition like diabetes, hypertension and renal artery stenosis. Once the person starts developing renal insufficiency, person will have a headache, hypertension, decreased ability to concentrate urine, so polyuria to oliguria depending upon what stage he is, increased blood urea and serum creatinine, edema, gradually there is a decrease in the GFR, mild anemia, hypertension, weakness, fatigue, etc. And when the renal insufficiency becomes very severe enough, we call as end stage. These are all the symptom signs we have already discussed before. Neurological symptoms, cardiovascular system, pulmonary, GI tract, psychological, hematological, skin, musculoskeletal, and person invariably will need hemodialysis. So these are the diagrammatic representation. When GFR becomes less than 15, we call it a stage 5. This is in general what we have shown you before. Individual system wise, this is a diagram showing you effect on psychological, cardiovascular, gastroenterology, endocrines, metabolic, hematology, neurology, ocular, pulmonary, skin, peripheral neuropathy, etc. This is the same way diagram showing you all those different things. So these are the few of the slides which shows you effect on different structures. So CKD will have effect on all the organs because all the functions of kidney are being affected. Now, investigations wise, history is very important, particularly history of hypertension, diabetes, systemic infection, inflammatory disorders, metabolic disorders, history of nephrotoxic drugs, family history of renal or urological disorders, etc. is very important. While evaluating the uremic symptoms or uremic syndromes regarding appetite, diet, nausea, vomiting, edema, weight change, etc. Have a good physical examination, blood pressure examination. Look for abdomen for renal enlargement, or we call as a enlarged kidney, edema, and neurological examination. Going through the blood investigation, CBC is useful because person will have a pancytopenia. Blood urea will be elevated, creatinine will be elevated, mainly in electrolyte, hypernatremia, hyperkalemia, calcium, hypocalcemia, hyperphosphatemia, parathermone level will be elevated, HbA1c will be abnormal, liver function test will be affected, uric acid is elevated, iron levels are reduced, urine analysis will show microscopic abnormality like RBC may be present, cast may be present, proteinuria, etc. Spot urine examination for microalbuminuria is very useful in a diabetic kidney. 24-hour urine collection for protein and creatinine, and it is useful for identifying severity of proteinuria and also albumin creatinine ratio. Ultrasound will help you to identify the anatomy of kidney, the size, shape, congenital kidneys like polycystic kidney, hydronephrotic, single kidney, absent kidney, ptosis of the kidney, etc. Cyst stones can be also identified by ultrasounds. Depending upon the echogenicity, you can identify the other abnormalities in the kidney. The two main standard investigation, that is eGFR calculation and albumin or albumin creatinine ratio, is also very useful. And this is a chart we have already shown you before. We call it a albumin, GFR and cause, CAG, cause, albumin and GFR, that particular category. And this is a ECG showing you a ST elevation with concavity upwards, which is characteristics of pericarditis. You can see in a multiple leads. Now, once you make a diagnosis of CKD, the management will come as a dietary and fluid management, kidney replacement therapy, mainly we call as a RRT, which consists of hemodialysis, peritoneal dialysis, followed by a renal transplant. Medication is useful mainly for the complications, and depending upon the stage and depending upon the complication, you can decide regarding the another. While treating, you need to monitor CKD, you need to manage risk factors, manage cardiovascular risk factor to reduce the progress of the disease. For management, you have to have a nice workup, rule out underlying condition like diabetes and hypertension. You must have a rigid control of hypertension and diabetes. Dyslipidemia should be controlled. Treatment of anemia by EPO or blood transfusion. Treatment of hyperphosphatemia by diet, calcium bicarbonate or calcium acetate. Avoid dehydration, nephrotoxic drugs. Avoid ACE inhibitor, ARB, NSAID, aminoglycoside, radiocontrast. Nutritional supplements should be given properly. Depending upon the sodium and potassium imbalance, potassium and sodium has to be restricted. Protein restriction is depending upon the renal functions and protein conditions. Calcium is given from outside, vitamin D is given from outside, depending upon the calcium level and vitamin D level. Whatever drug you utilize for whether hypertension, diabetes, statins, etc., you must consider the stage of the kidney disorders. નૂતન લઈ લે તો હા હું સ્લાઇડ પ્રિપેર કરું છું બેટા આપું મમ્મીને આપું proper dosing of the drug should be done depending upon the CKD stage. Depending upon the stage. So some drugs will be contraindicated in different stages or you will have to cut down the dose, particularly of antibiotics and other drugs. And then if person goes to the stage 4 and 5, you might have to go for a renal replacement therapy, that is peritoneal dialysis, hemodialysis followed by renal transplant. And this is a diagram which shows you what treatment you give for hypertension, proteinuria, cholesterol management, lifestyle modification, avoid NSAID, particularly COX inhibitors, treatment of anemia, renal osteodystrophy, acidosis, malnutrition, and if a person develops immunization. Even in that condition, you might require a regular vaccination also. This is a chart which is showing you what you have to do in a lifestyle modification. Stop smoking, stop alcohol, regular exercise, maintain BMI, sodium restriction, potassium restriction, fluid restriction depending upon the urine output, and even dietary protein restriction should be done depending upon the albuminuria. This is showing you how to slow down the progress of the CKD, that slowing of the progression, particularly in diabetic kidney, and managing the complication of a chronic kidney diseases. Depending upon the stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, what are the treatment which are being advised commonly. In stage 0, we call risk factor management. Stage 1, specific therapy depending upon the etiology, and also manage the comorbid conditions properly, rigid control of comorbid condition, particularly diabetes and hypertension, treatment of cardiovascular disease and cerebrovascular risk factors. Stage 2, you slow down the loss of kidney function by a rigid control and other measures. Stage 3, prevention and treatment of complications, because stage 3 is a stage of complication. And in stage 4, you will require renal replacement therapy, particularly peritoneal dialysis or hemodialysis. And once the person GFR goes below 15, person might require renal replacement therapy followed by renal transplant. This is same thing explained in another pattern: increased risk, damage, decreased GFR, kidney failure, and in end stage renal disease. This is sodium balance is maintained by restricting sodium and using diuretic therapy. Hyperkalemia is mainly done by dietary restriction. Avoid NSAID, avoid ACE inhibitor, ARB, and you might require to use glucose and insulin. In case of a metabolic acidosis, sodium bicarbonate is indicated. In a case of a calcium phosphorus imbalance, phosphate binders are utilized to decrease the phosphate levels, and calcium mimetics are being utilized. While because of a pancytopenia, you will have to give EPO from outside, which is called erythropoiesis stimulating agents from outside, and you might have to give an iron replacement at a regular interval, and which is not by oral, it has to be mainly parenteral, because iron will not be absorbed nicely from GI tract. This is a diagram which is showing you another way also, that to delay the progression, blood pressure should be rigidly controlled. Treat proteinuria by ACE inhibitor ARB. Diabetes and blood sugar should be rigidly controlled. Avoid nephrotoxic drugs. Treat dyslipidemia and have a nice lifestyle. To prevent complications like anemia, treatment of malnutrition, bone disorders, and acidosis. Simultaneously, comorbid conditions like cardiovascular disease, hypertension, and diabetes should be treated, and those should be rigidly controlled. And then you prepare for RRT. You will have to select the mode of renal replacement therapy depending upon the stage. Dialysis indicated in a patient with oliguria, anuria, hyperkalemia once the potassium goes above 6.5, acidosis, severe uremia, uremic complication, particularly uremic flaps, uremic encephalopathy, and in a case of a cardiovascular, uremic pericarditis, or if a person has developed a severe congestive heart failure. Hypernatremia also is one of the indication. Fluid overload, hypothermia, hypothermia, and some of the drug overdose is also an indication for dialysis. And this is the last resort we call as a renal transplant. Complications we already discussed before. There is a list of complications: cardiovascular complications, hyperkalemia, acid-base imbalance, hematological complication, neurological complications, mineral metabolism, endocrine complication, dyslipidemia, malnutrition, bone disorders, metabolic acidosis, etc. This is a big list of all complications which can occur in a renal disorders, or we call as a CKD, uremic complications, etc. Here I end my lecture. I think this is helpful to you.